Well, Tarryn, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you. I really am so excited to be doing this today. I've been looking forward to it all weekend. So this is exciting for me. My name is Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and I am the host of the Business of Happiness podcast. And that's one hat I wear. I also am an orthodontist. So I have a brick and mortar practice that I love. I'm very proud of. And I also have an online version of me as a prosperity coach for business owners and entrepreneurs to find happiness within their success.
And I love how you share that. And to be honest, it's the first time I have an orthodontist on the show. So I'm thrilled to hear that because, equally what we're going to share with the audience today is a little bit to do with that success and with your success in your story as well, which is why I want to ask you, share us a little bit about your story. I mean, yes, you're an orthodontist, but how did that get started? And how did you kind of put on these other hats on your journey?
Absolutely. I fell in love with dentistry many, many, many years ago when I was a teenager because it had this beautiful marriage of a few things that I was so passionate about in terms of creativity and artistry and marrying that with science. And then the promise of entrepreneurial pursuits and being a leader of a team, giving back to the community, and taking care of people. So all of those things just sang to me. So I dove into college with a one-minded focus, graduated within 3 years just because I was plowing through the material, putting aside everything else, my health, my happiness, my social life. I just knew I needed to go to dental school. Went through dental school with that single-minded pursuit that I was going to be a dentist, did the same thing for another 4 years. And when I graduated, feeling quite unfulfilled, because here I reached the culmination of my efforts and it wasn't what brought me happiness. I thought, I guess I need to specialize. So I went into a specialty within dentistry that is what I think of the happiest specialty. You don't go to the orthodontist and you're in pain. You go to straighten your smile and to feel empowered by your smile. And orthodontic offices seemed like such a happy place. So put all my needs and wants and loves and happiness aside again, just with this one mind track to be an orthodontist. And the story is beginning to get repetitive, as you can tell, because when I graduated, once again, feeling less than fulfilled, I thought, well, it was the entrepreneur side of things. I need to own my own practice. I can't work for someone else. So purchased a practice, started running this new business, and then once again felt that same kind of empty feeling. And I thought, I think it's a family. I need to have children, get pregnant. So after ignoring my body for decades, infertility was a big thing. And finally, when we got it right after several years, my body very quickly learned what to do. So I had 2 babies in quick succession. And all of a sudden, I was overwhelmed. And my story really starts where one day, and this is so embarrassing to even mention, but I get brave to tell the story because I know that maybe it'll help some people out there. But honestly, one day I had this sudden wake up of sobriety after drinking a couple of martinis at the end of a workday one day, trying to escape the stress and overwhelm. My 2 toddler babies were in bed, and I had this sudden wake up. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of your listeners where you've had too much to drink, and then all of a sudden you get this flash of complete sobriety. And I was squatting over the trash can in my kitchen, peeing in the trash can of my kitchen. My husband, I can still picture him lying on the couch, and I was mortified. I was terrified. I thought, oh my gosh, can he see what I'm doing? I was kind of around the counter. And I ran with the trash can to the bathroom and I was trying to wash it out. And I looked up in the mirror and I just remember, Henriette, just not even recognizing the person looking back at me. I thought, oh my gosh, Tarryn, I had my 2 babies in bed. I had a full schedule of patients at 8 a.m. the next morning. And I'd slipped into this vice of alcohol, escape, just trying to run away from this dream that I had built up. And here I was sitting in a fancy house that I had bought, with the fancy car I had bought, with the orthodontic practice. I was the queen of my realm here. I was doing everything that from the outside looked so successful. I even had kids. I even had a family. I had the fancy dog. And I felt anything else other than successful. This felt terrifying. And what I did was I started to run. I thought, I can't do this. And so as quickly as I could, it took a few years. I sold my practice, I sold my house, I sold the car. So it tried to, if I could have at that time, I would have run away from my kids. I just was trying to run from everything. And the one thing I couldn't run away from was myself. And that started my journey of self-discovery. And what I got so used to over decades of pursuing the single-minded algorithm of what success looked like, and neglecting my own needs, my own worth, my own values, my own happiness along the way. I got so good at it. It took me a while to begin to even find happiness again and understand what that was. And, embedded in that was a ton of shame. Here I was, I've got everything that should be happy. Who am I to not be happy with all the stuff? And so I had quite a bit to work through. That was 2010. So, oh my gosh, 12 years later, here I am. I'm still an orthodontist. I love what I do. I built a new practice. I started it from scratch this time. And I thought, this time I'm going to base it on my values. I'm going to base it on what brings me joy. This incredibly service-oriented profession, literally putting smiles on other people's faces every day, needs to feed me too, needs to feed my soul. And so from the very beginning, that's what I based this business model on. And it has been enormously rewarding. And the fun thing has been to see the ripple effects in the rest of my life. My marriage was healed from it. My own health was healed from it. My relationship with my children. And I thought, geez, I've got to share this. I've got to let other people know that there is another way. There's a way to find enormous success, to create something beautiful and exciting and growth oriented, that keeps growing every year, and not feel completely trapped by it and not feel like it's running you. And there's a way to find yourself within that success. And that's where the business of happiness was born.
Oh my gosh, your story is so heartwarming, because you know what? I'm so glad that you're sharing that and being very open and honest, because at the same time, there are so many people out there who's like, oh my gosh, you've had it all. How can you not be happy? But you know what? A lot of people that I sometimes meet do go through a stage like that where they have it all. They've become so successful in any rightful mind, or any way you look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, they're so successful, but deep down they're very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is to do with what we're going to share here today, but equally it's to do with, there's so much externally we can get and acquire in life, but then when we do get it, we just realize like, oh, it's not this big aha moment that I thought it was going to be. I'm okay with it, but I'm not ecstatic. I'm not, jumping for joy. I mean, I remember the first time in my business when I signed up a client, I was like, yay, I've got a client. But I was like, but yay, I'm excited. But where's that real kind of excitement, that real aha moment that I was looking for and planning for so long? And it came back down to exactly what you said. It's like, you've got to discover what your own happiness is, what really, really makes you happy. It's not always the external things. Yes, they maybe add an element of happiness, but it's not the overall thing. And I
Absolutely.
think it's beautifully into what you want to share with us today. So if you don't mind me asking, you know, from your point of view, how do we redefine success for ourselves on our own terms?
Absolutely. I think it takes a lot of introspection and time alone with yourself. And isn't it funny? That's the one thing none of us have enough of. But, you know, I think we create an idea of what success is based on other people's definition of it. You know, we look to someone and we say, wow, she looks really successful. That's what I want. You know, and we don't ever stop to ask ourselves what's important to us. As a prosperity coach, I work with a lot of clients who are multi millionaires. I'm talking about people who have boats and airplanes and second and third homes, and they're miserable because they're not ever on that plane, or they're not ever on that boat, or maybe it wasn't ever a boat that they wanted. They don't really enjoy the ocean, but they were just kind of chasing an algorithm of success that somebody else had established. And you know, even in terms of online businesses as well, we get this idea of so many followers or so many supporters or so many clients. And even that number can be overwhelming or not a part of what is truly our definition of success. You know, I think that there's so much more to us complex human beings in terms of our physical success, our mental and emotional success, and our spiritual success. And all of those have to be a part of what you mean by success for yourself. So just starting that journey, and it's fascinating when I speak to clients and I say, well, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? And many times it's the incredible men and women who've spent decades avoiding, pushing it aside, delaying satisfaction and gratification, that have forgotten what it's like to actually feel joy. You know, we can say, well, my children, my family, you know, there's this idea of what should bring us joy. But sometimes people forget how to feel happy because they get out of practice with it. So I actually think one of the best ways is to incorporate it every day, not just to feel happy every day, but to find happy every day. Because if you put it off and put it off, it's like any other muscle that you don't use. You forget how it feels. You forget how to use that muscle. You lose the strength in that muscle. And I see that with a lot of my clients. They forget what even brings them joy. But taking time every day to be quiet with yourself, meaning putting away the distractions, the cell phone, work, emails, to-do lists, and we're such great doers. Entrepreneurs are really good at showing up for their pursuits, and that dedication and that consistency is something that comes to us so naturally. But it's the dedication and consistency to ourselves that takes a whole new level of practice. Yeah.
I love how you're putting it together, because yes, it is like a muscle. If we don't exercise that muscle continuously, about just feeling joy. It's not about being joyful, it's just feeling. That feeling is so important. And I meditate every morning, and I give myself that time just to feel amazing. Even if I just sit there and I just feel amazing, you know, there's nothing more you can want. But just feeling amazing and feeling that joy is literally, like you say, it's like exercising a muscle.
Absolutely.
And I think in so much as well is it's true what you're saying. We're always comparing success towards what other people are saying, or when we see something, or we see somebody else being successful, we think that's it, that's what I need to do. And then
the other thing that
but it's not aligned with you. Apologies.
No, I apologize. I get just as excited talking about this. I think another thing we do is we compare ourselves to ourselves. So another thing that entrepreneurs are great at is looking at where the improvement needs to happen. We analyze constantly, or we get feedback that's negative and we think, okay, how can I fix that? How can I assess that and level up? And we spend time kind of perseverating on the negative things, but we don't perseverate on the positive things. Yeah. So when you mentioned your meditation practice, it's brilliant, because just giving yourself time to, as you said, feel joy allows you to sit in that that feeling for a little bit longer. You know, if we spend most of our time swimming around those negative feelings and constantly trying to problem solve and sitting with anxiety, it becomes a definition of our whole day, as opposed to grabbing onto those little moments that were really successful and celebratory, an opportunity to feel joy, even if it's something small, but allowing it to take up more space in your mindset. That matters. It matters because it sets you on this trajectory of feeling that joy more frequently, even if it's something small. And the irony of it is that when you feel good, that's when you can make great, creative, empowered decisions as a business owner, as a business leader. When you're feeling like you're putting fires out or band-aids on situations, then you're making decisions out of a fear-based perspective, as opposed to this empowered, feeling great about yourself perspective. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with you. And, you know, just hearing you say it just made me realize it is so simple. Why do we overcomplicate things for ourselves? Why can't we be more happy? It's so simple to be happy. You don't need to rely on external factors. Just rely on yourself and just practice it. Practice being happy.
I think so. I think you're right. It seems very simple, and yet people can feel very shameful about it, you know, especially successful entrepreneurs. Here I am. I can run a business. I can grow a business. I can grow a certain number of followers or clientele. Why can't I feel happy? We put a lot of onus on that, on ourselves. And sometimes that can be disempowering. And I find that many people don't give themselves enough compassion or time to reestablish this new way of being. They want to find the quick fix. And that's why we go to vices so often. And trust me, I've been through all the vices. I tried them all. None of them work. You can drink as much as you want or Netflix as much as you want, but none of that will bring you the happiness that you're looking for. It really is an inside job. The only thing that can bring you happiness. And, you know, even in terms of our spouses or our lovers or our children, there's nothing outside of us that promises us that happiness. It has to be something that you cultivate from within. And, you know, often we want to put blame on things outside of us of why we can't find happiness or what's preventing me from happiness or preventing me from success. And the answer is always within you in terms of your beliefs and your perspectives on the situation.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that leads nicely onto self-empowerment, which is the other thing you want to share with us. And you say that there are 3 permissions of self-empowerment. And I think, you know, with what you're saying, it comes back to us, not the external. It's always about us, within us. So what are the 3 permissions then to empower ourselves so that, hey, we can all stay happy as long as we can?
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. The only person who can grant these 3 permissions is yourself. That's it. The permissions are self-promised, self-permitted permissions. And the first one is the permission to dream. And I love this permission because it's something you can use at any point in your business pursuit. It's something, in fact, you have to keep revisiting because embedded in the dream is the passion. You know, when I was talking about when I was a teenager and I had this dream, you know, and so many of your listeners will understand this. You have this vision of what could be, and you get so excited, and it's so easy to get lost in it. That doesn't feel like work. You know, you're ready to pull all-nighters. You're ready to work 7 days a week. You're ready to make this happen because you have this passion alive within yourself. And then when we get to that place where we don't, where it feels like a chore, where it feels like the work has become a true workload and it's pulling from us, you always have the permission to go back and dream a new dream. It doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean you throw away this business venture of yours that you've nurtured and cultivated, but it does mean you can see it with a new light or have a new goal for it or a new flavor of it that will bring back that passion, because that passion is your motivation. You know, we're constantly looking for, how can I stay motivated? How can I stick with it? what it really comes down to is your permission to dream. And sometimes we think that there are limitations on our dreams. We think, well, this is the bed I've made. Now I've got to lay in it. I didn't realize this about this, but now here I am. Or we think this is the marriage I'm in. I just got to stick with it. Or, I've always wanted kids. Now I've got kids. I gotta stick with these kids. And although you may have to stick with your own children, there's a new way to envision life in that role. And giving yourself permission to dream gives you an opportunity to paint a portrait of success for yourself. Maybe it isn't the way it is right now, but just giving yourself that vision of what could be is the permission you need, not just to settle. And then the second permission is to honor your own values. And this is how you start recreating your personal definition of success, not someone else's. So your values are very different from my values. And what's so interesting is when you speak to people, everyone thinks I have high values. There's nobody who thinks they don't have high values. But if you ever really thought about what those values are, and are they different from what you thought 10 years ago? Are there values that are maybe taking different priorities in your life, in different seasons of your life? The reason why I think honoring your values is so important is because our businesses are an extension of us. And if we want them to fuel us, we need to literally write the business plan based on our values. Because if you're doing something that's out of alignment with your values, that's an absolute recipe for unhappiness. If you're doing something that just doesn't jive with your values, then you're not going to feel great about yourself every day at work. You're not going to feel empowered or fueled by your work. So sitting down and when people say, well, how do I figure out my values? The easiest exercise I have is just start writing them down. Just do a brain dump. Family, love, integrity, honesty. Just start writing everything down, as many as you can think of. And then go back and circle the 5 that really seem to exemplify the core of who you are. And then take a look at your business and see, how can I incorporate those things into my business? In my brick and mortar business, we did this to such an extent that I would only work with a bank that would exemplify those same values. Now, any professionals that I align with or any partnerships I create, I stick to those values and I come back to them every time I have a question about a direction I should go in, or should I pursue this new line of business. I come back to my values. They've always been my North Star of how to go forward. And as I do so, I know and I see the greater success. It becomes easier to follow through because they're aligned with who I am. And that brings me to the third permission, which is the permission to pursue. And this, I know so many of your audience members would recognize, is sometimes we have a dream we're so excited about, and we don't give ourselves permission to go after it. Or if you're in the middle of a business and you know you want to take it in a new direction or see it differently, but we don't give ourselves that permission. We give ourselves stories of, oh, this will be the end of it, or this will be the doom of my business. You know, one example of this is a few years ago, we realized that we were seeing patients into the early evening. And all of my team members are moms. We all wish we could be there in the afternoon for our kids. But in orthodontics, parents like to bring their kids in after school. They don't like to bring them out of school. And we've always wanted to be available for our own children in the afternoon. So we started ending our workday before the end of the afternoon. We ended a little bit earlier, 3:30 or 4 o'clock on some days. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is an algorithm for disaster because most of the patients we see are teenagers. I can't believe it's still not $1 difference in our production that month. And no problem since. There were some unhappy customers who were used to coming in at a certain time, but over time, it's just become accepted. These are our hours. if this doesn't work for you, there are many other opportunities. But it's those stories we tell ourselves. That was a dream we had to add to our happiness, to make our lives feel more full, and just giving ourselves permission to go in that direction. And the truth is, we always have the opportunity to dream a new dream. Go right back. It didn't work. You made less money and you don't want that to have that new number. Dream it again. Give yourself new permission to pursue a different direction.
Yeah. Oh, I love these. I love these 3 permissions. And it's so true, because as you were sitting there and talking it through, I'm like reflecting on myself and I'm going, I've always been a dreamer, okay? Hands up. And I've even been told off in classes in school going, stop dreaming, concentrate on your classwork. But for me, I've always been a dreamer, even still today. I mean, I can easily just sit and just go off and go, oh my gosh, where have I just been? I'm actually sitting here behind my desk, I'm daydreaming. But I find it so valuable, and I've kind of given myself that permission. And when I do daydream, just go for it. But then it's sometimes when you daydream that those ideas come up that you would have never had before.
Absolutely.
And this is where I find it so valuable with what you're saying. Then, whatever those dreams are connected with your values. And then I'm going, yeah, but is this going to work? And is this based on what I want to do? And is this based on what I want to achieve? And I'm like, yep. It's got my core values in it. It's like, right, now the next step is just to go for it, pursue it. And this is the big obstacle. I find that I always talk about, when I work with clients, it's like, well, first of all, you need the key, which is the mindset. And this is where the dream comes in. Then you need a locking mechanism, which is basically the strategies of what it is that you need to put in place. And the last thing is the action, the handle on that door. You've got to use it. You've got to open up that door. You've got the key. You've got to unlock the door. You just got to open the door and go for it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, by the way. That's brilliant. I love that way of thinking about it. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's an analogy I use, but I find that so many people, when they get to that door, they either stand in front of that door and go, oh gosh, what if I go through this door and everything I wanted, this whole dream, it's not there. It doesn't happen. Or what if I do go through this door and everything I've dreamt about is just going to happen all at the same time. And I find this is where the fear of success or the fear of failure comes in play. Mm-hmm. But heck, you're never going to know unless you open up the door and go through it. You've got to pursue it. You've got to take the action.
And that's the confidence conundrum, is we can never feel confident about anything until we take action. Exactly. That's it. And then you get the information you need. It's going to be good or bad. But either way, they're just data points. Yeah. That's it. Either it's going to be great or it's going to not be great. And it's just going to be a data point and some new information to make a new informed decision.
Exactly. And this is why I love how you're putting it together, because it comes back down to self-empowerment. Mm-hmm. I mean, give yourself permission. Number 1, permission to dream, permission to make sure that, whatever you do is you have to honor your values. Whatever the dream is, it honors your values, and then pursue it. Yeah. That is basically the easiest recipe in order to build your own confidence and to take a step in a direction, whether it's the right direction or the wrong direction, it is a direction. So I love how you said that.
Well, thank you. And another aspect of it is really tapping into how it feels, because that's the whole point. We're talking about happiness here. So you can be going down a route for success, but if it doesn't feel good, why do it? If it doesn't feel good, dream again. So a big part of it is taking the time, and as you mentioned in your meditation process, it's just what feels good. And I think sometimes we lose touch with that. We don't even know, does this feel good, or should this feel good? Is this something that other people are telling me should feel good? And that's the same thing with my description of my previous business. Outside of me, that should have felt good. That was, in fact, if you'd given me a piece of paper and said, write down what should be happy, I would have written down all those things. That I didn't have anything I didn't have that, or I didn't think I needed for happiness. But what I didn't pay attention was how it felt to me, and give myself permission to feel that outside of the expectations of others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. And I love how you put it all together. I think the audience is getting some great value. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I started getting so excited with this whole conversation. I'm like a little rubber ball. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So no, thank you so much for sharing this. And just to recap with everybody listening, you know, as Tarryn has said, it comes back down to number one, redefining what is success for you. How does it make you feel? Whatever it is that you want, what is it that you want, but how does it make you feel? What is real success? And how do you measure that for yourself? Don't compare yourself or don't compare success towards other people and what they've achieved, because their meaning of success is very different from yourselves. But equally, be careful of how you treat yourself and what is the kind of success path that you're putting yourself on. She just said it beautifully. How does it make you feel? Okay, so always think about that. And then we briefly just spoke about the 3 permissions of giving yourself that empowerment that you need. Number 1, dream and continue with dreaming and redream, create new dreams all the time. Number 2, honor your values. You know, whatever that dream is, make sure that it's the same value of what it is who you are. And Tarryn also said, you know, just go brain dump. Whatever you want to know what your values are, just go brain dump. And just look at everything you've written down and maybe choose the top 3 as an example and say, these are the 3 things that I always want to, you know, to feel that is aligned with me. And then lastly, just pursue your dreams. Oh my gosh, it is so simple. So I just quickly wanted to kind of put it all together there. And I hope I got it spot on, Tarryn. I hope I didn't miss anything or mislead anybody with the wrong thing. But that's what I took away from today. And like I said, I'm getting so excited because I do feel it's so powerful what Tarryn has said. Oh, wow. Okay, Tarryn, before we go, I just wanted to thank you and say, you know, it's been such an honor to have you here. And thank you so much for sharing your story as well. I think everybody resonated with that, you know, immensely. But before we go, I know that you've got an amazing Facebook group. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and where people can find you?
Absolutely. Thank you. I do. I love my Facebook group. It's an opportunity for like-minded entrepreneurs to come together for support. And if you need that little bit of cheerleading to pursue, this is where you'll find it. So it's the Business of Happiness Hive. And come on in, ask to be joined, and we'd love to have you there. Lots of support happening there. And you can find me also on Instagram, The Business of Happiness, or Facebook, or on my website, thebizofhappiness.com.
Amazing. And what we'll do is we'll have all of those links available in the show notes. So just go click over there and it'll direct you directly to the Facebook group. I'll also make sure that there's a link to Tarryn's podcast there, so you can go and listen more to what she's sharing. Because if you found today to be of value, then oh my gosh, I promise you, you're going to find a lot more value in her groups and just by following with her. And I'm sure if you'd like to get in touch, you know, send her a message. I'm sure she'd love to have a good chat with you. But again, Tarryn, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you all of the best. And I'm sure we're going to be in touch fairly soon.
Wonderful. Same here. Thank you again for the honor. I appreciate it.
No problem. Speak soon.